Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Modern Investor. Hope that you are all doing well. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic and that you are all having a great day. I am a huge believer in real estate. It is I'll say my second favorite kind of investment ever. I recently wrote a book on real estate investing for those of you who do not have millions of dollars to get into the market. This book might be beneficial for you. There's a link to it in the description below for those of you who are looking to become real estate investors. Yeah! Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you're all doing good. As I always say, hope you're all remembering to invest. No one else is going to do it for you. Some light pendulum swings within the cryptocurrency market. Is nothing negative by any means whatsoever. We have had a couple of days, if you weren't here, discussing Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy and them selling off some Bitcoin. But besides that, we tend to be caught in this ever optimistic phase within the market. I've gone over that with you before. Even if we tend to have some kind of negative news or the thing with the, what was it called? Cold wallet? I forgot what it was called. Cold brick, whatever the thing was called. A couple of, like a week ago or something like that, that fades very quick. The investor mind is always on making more money. We are getting a lot of news about companies buying up still huge amounts of crypto. We're getting a lot of, and I have to roll my eyes for this one, a lot of like inflow news. What? For cryptocurrency ETFs. Because whenever we get any kind of news, that BlackRock and associates and other investors sold off some of their positions in Bitcoin or Ethereum through the ETFs. People get quite nervous and quite negative, and then 4.5 days later, lo and behold, we find out that that money just basically goes back into the fund. So this was obviously very popular news. But I was a little confused because the numbers are very similar to what they were before. And everyone was kind of commenting on and announcing that this number change had happened. But this is exactly where we were just around a month ago. You'll see what I'm saying. So BitMine is a former Bitcoin mining company turned Ethereum everything. The head of BitMine is run by Thomas Lee, who is, I would dare say, the biggest Ethereum bull on the planet. He told us last year that there are apparently dozens plus companies, banks, institutions who are going to be using Ethereum for everything. Not for some things, for everything. He's the person who famously said the 15,000 and the $22,000 Ethereum price prediction based off of usage and other things like that. So back in the news today, the Ethereum treasury company, they're called BitMine Immersion Technologies, purchased another 10,399 Ethereum last week, and they repurchased another 4.5 million shares as it continued its crypto accumulation and stock buyback program. On Monday, BitMine said that they held 5.79 million Ethereum. That's a lot. Worth 10.9 billion US dollars. The company said that their Ethereum holdings, here's the confusing part. The company said their Ethereum holdings represent about 4.8% of Ether's 120.7 million total circulating supply as of now. Hold on. Bitmine, yes, is pursuing a target of 5% of the total Ethereum supply. The confusing part is that uh, a month and a half ago, we had news. So Bitmine's always buying. It feels weekly. It feels weekly, if not every other weekly, that they had purchased more Ethereum. But we also already heard that they had already gotten to the 4.8% of Ethereum. I have to sneeze. Please go away. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, I think I'm good. Jeez Louise, what was that? That they already had the 4.8%. So most websites and news outlets where I found this news, the headline was often Bitmine now has 4.8% of Ethereum's total supply. And I was like, that already happened. Bitmine, and it's not that this is a bad thing, Bitmine is also, you can tell, scaling back a lot of their Ethereum purchases and making sure to focus on their stock buyback, their share buyback, as well as increasing the amount of money that they have on the side. This is a reaction to everything that happened with MicroStrategy. I told you all 2 months ago, I said, you don't understand how like the ripples that this is going to cause through the industry. The idea of one company overextending themselves and getting themselves in $60 billion worth of debt and then not being able to pay their dividend, that's insane. So Bitmine has historically, every purchase has been around 280,000 Bitcoin, 118,000, Ethereum per purchase. And now they're doing a lot more, 10,000, 13,500, like that kind of thing. It's fine. No company needs that much Ethereum themselves. So these smaller purchases are great, but they're also able to show their shareholders, we can do this just because if you keep overextending and you have bad times as a company, people will take their capital and they will go somewhere else. The company also held 209 Bitcoin, $173 million in cash, and marketable securities. Can you imagine having $173 million in cash? I'm sorry, that's just my brain. I saw the number and I was like, think about your bank account. Imagine going to check your bank account and you see that it says $173 million inside of it. Like what would you do? Marketable securities and equity stakes in Beast Tech Industries, what? And 8Co Holdings. Their combined crypto, cash, securities, and other investments were valued at 11.3 billion US dollars. The latest disclosure follows Bitmine's purchase of nearly 10,000 Ether announced on the 28th of July. At the time, the company said roughly 85. Wow. Whoa. At the time, the company said roughly 85% of their Ethereum holdings were staked through their validator operations. The last we got from that, I think they had like 40 or 50% staked. 85% is monstrously insane. They're also making, I think it's like almost $1 million per day from staking their Ethereum. So as I always say, this company is doing absolutely just fine. But yeah, the companies are back. They're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to buy as much crypto as they possibly can. Also, I'll tie them loosely together because it's like, sure, why the fudge not? This also made very popular news. Um, we knew that these things were going to launch, but there were a lot of unspecifics as to what they were going to be or how they would. Anyway, the last few months, as you've heard, We've had a very large uptick in XRP news. We've had a pretty good run consistently for Bitcoin news, but Ethereum has normally been one of two things: people telling us that Ethereum is going to do very well and is going to succeed, and or Bitmine news about Bitmine buying up more Ethereum. We have thus far heard maybe three or four. I'll give it a good five. I want to say five times this year that we've heard of like amazing things happening to or on top of Ethereum this year thus far. But as the year rolls on, we're actually hearing finally a lot more companies and institutions who are actively announcing what they're building and that they're building on top of Ethereum. This goes back to my rant in April where I was like, who? Because we keep hearing that everyone's using XRP, but we're not getting all 1,000 company and bank names. We keep hearing that there's a lot of interest in Ethereum, and everyone's going to be building on top of it. In 3.5 years, we're going to have $10 trillion worth of real world assets on top of Ethereum. And we're like, okay, that's awesome. Where are the assets and who's going to be doing all of this? So BlackRock has expanded their tokenized money market funds to Europe, and they're doing so with Ethereum. Yeah, their money market funds to Europe with Ethereum share classes covering $311 billion in institutional liquidity assets. It says BlackRock has launched tokenized share classes for Ethereum institutional money market funds, managing $311 billion in assets. The Ethereum-based rollout lets approved investors transfer funds shares between eligible wallets while keeping traditional funds records in place. The launch follows BlackRock's introduction of two tokenized money market products for institutional investors within the United States. The tokenized share classes will be available across 15 markets and are intended for treasury management, digital collateral, and other institutional use cases. Yes, we are finally beginning to get names and also like amounts. And I still will say, I wonder what the number is. First of all, we're hearing that all of this is meant to, I mean, of course, we will see stuff in 2027, but we are beginning to finally see names attached to the actual usage. It is fantastic to hear that Ethereum is going to do well in the future. But as investors, it's also nice to hear like what is launching, who's doing what, how much money will be within that fund, how much money is going to be moving around. My other question is how much money is it going to take? Because I think as of now, we have $60 billion worth of tokenized real world assets on top of chains. That's what we last heard. So even these money market funds, that they're going to be able to move back and forth, but I assume the majority of them, it'll take time for them to be tokenized. Okay. So as we already have double digit and soon to be triple digit billions worth of dollars moving through these chains, I wonder, do we have to wait until $500 billion? Until $1 trillion? Until $3 trillion? Moving on these chains every single day back and forth until we actually see it positively affect the coin's price. I would find it very difficult to believe if we have $7 trillion worth of assets on top of Ethereum and they're being traded back and forth every single day. Lightning speed, 24 hours. Ethereum does not close. That we would have any day where Ethereum doesn't move up in price. Because all the movement there is also burning Ethereum in the background, which is lowering the actual circulating supply, which means Ethereum becomes rarer. And if Ethereum is already in a burn state, for those of you who don't know, all the normal transactions from Ethereum are burning more Ethereum than are actually being created. So we can logically expand and say, if we have X already, and then X eventually becomes plus 1 trillion, 4 trillion, 5 trillion being traded 24 hours a day, this should then logically equate to a 5, 10, 15, 20x in burn value that we are from where we're currently sitting. That's my, I wonder how much money it's going to take before we start getting, until we do see a $45,000 Ether. According to a recent announcement, BlackRock has introduced its first tokenized access to institutional money market funds in Europe by launching blockchain-based share classes on Ethereum in partnership with Connexus by JP Morgan Chase. Cool. Let's see what ends up happening. We're getting a lot of Ethereum news once again. It's unsurprising because it is Ethereum, but it's nice to actually hear some names. You might not be, but I am impatiently awaiting exactly what's going to happen with the other coins and chains as well. You might have seen there's been an uptick even in price and interest seemingly out of nowhere for Cardano after we had a good 3-month negative stint for news and price. But I want to know like who these people are working with. I want to know what's happening. I want to know like as an investor, realistically, where all of these things are going. But we're still getting good news nonstop. That's been kind of the focal point for a lot of this. The accumulation still happening, the money's still moving in, and I'm just excited to see where this all goes. That's the BlackRock, Ethereum, and I guess JP Morgan news. I'm not really sure. Okie dokie. Let's move on. Also, I guess this will tie directly into it as well. It says Bitcoin could challenge prevailing bearish expectations in August as BlackRock made a significant move in the cryptocurrency market with a major Bitcoin purchase. Let me explain. This might be brand new for a lot of you. August is typically, in crypto, in stocks, in finance, seen as a negative month. Years ago in crypto, it took us a while to actually understand this or why it could have been a thing. It's namely because everyone's on vacation. I know it sounds quite simple, but that's basically it. So for years, we've heard in crypto that typically July and August tend to be negative months. It's actually April, July, and August. Do you know why April? Some of you, I'm sure, it's giving you flashbacks. April is tax season within the United States, so usually we see a dip in prices in April because people are typically selling some of their assets, selling some of their crypto to be able to pay back the tax man. That's literally what it is. July and August tend to be the peak of summer. And many investors, at least within the United States, people tend to go on vacation. Me and my family, someone was flabbergasted by this. I didn't realize, I mean, of course you wouldn't as a child. Growing up, we had a lot of vacation days in school, and we had a very long summer. And I didn't realize that other countries didn't have that. My particular schools, school ended, I want to say like the 20th or 21st of June. That was like the end of that year for high school and middle school. Doesn't even matter what it was. We didn't go back to school till like the second week of September. Yeah. So I was recently chatting with someone about that, and they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, we had the last week of June to ourselves. We had all of July. We had all of August. And then usually school would start maybe the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of September. And they were like, their school for where they went, I think they had like 5 or 6 weeks for summer vacation. And I was like, that doesn't sound nice. And I know, of course, it varies across the US, but that's what I was blessed with. So the idea has always been that usually in the States, July and August, everyone is vacationing. I mean, isn't Congress now also on vacation as well? That's the generalized idea. So, to the light contrary, September is also sometimes seen as a positive month for markets. Why? Because everyone spent a lot of money over their summer holidays, and now they're back to work in September. They realized how much money they spent over the last month and change, and now they have to make more money. It's weird. It's very simple. It's very very simple. But August is usually painted as like kind of like, oh gosh, historically, even for prices for Bitcoin and the crypto market, it tends to be, not always, but it tends to have like a negative tone to it. And people always are looking for some kind of another answer when the simplest one is right in front of them. First of all, macroeconomic events, but usually like it's just summertime. It's the same if you don't know. Before I got into crypto or had this channel, I used to sell a full time on eBay. That was like my thing. I was selling comic books. It was like my thing. I used to make a pretty penny. It wasn't anything insane, but I was quite dedicated to the craft. Um, what was my point? Yes, 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 yes. And summertime was always the worst for sales. So I have a number of friends who, over the last few years, they've also created their own businesses or they have their own whatever. Summertime is always the worst. And people always tend to go like, why are sales down? Why is no one buying anything? It's because everyone's away. Everyone's traveling. No one's thinking about doing any of those things. But by the time September rolls around again, people go back to the bakeries, they go back to the restaurants. And anyway, yeah, sorry for the ramble, but I don't know if anyone knew these things. So we're still getting out. This is odd news. We keep getting this kind of news where people are very surprised that despite prices being down, that companies would be buying, or that there are investors who are pushing money back into the ETFs. I told you my thought process before for a lot of that. We're in the midst of a situation where cryptocurrencies as a whole could potentially do a 15-20x in price from now until the year 2030 and so on and so forth. So of course the inflows and outflows are a very easy way for some reason to be able to manipulate prices. It's the same for crypto exchanges. People can put coins onto an exchange and it scares people. People take money off of a crypto exchange and people go, yeah, prices go higher. Okay, so the last week or two, maybe even less, I don't remember. There was like some negative sentiment around the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, and usually BlackRock tends to make the top of the list. They have the most money, so they end up being the one in the actual news articles, gigantic S there. But anytime that any money flows out, it is interestingly reported that BlackRock is like themselves hitting the red button. BlackRock is buying on behalf of other investors, if you didn't know that. And when those investors decide to sell, BlackRock is also then forced to also like sell accordingly. They're doing it on behalf. It's the same for every other ETF. That's how ETFs work. You buy the underlying asset when there's demand. If demand falls and people are selling, you are obligated through the laws of the SEC to also sell said underlying asset. So a lot of times it gets reported that BlackRock sold Bitcoin, like literally they were like, we don't want it, and they end up selling it. But then when the inflows happen, the news is that BlackRock bought more, and it's like, no, like it's their investors. And that's the interesting part because it's usually other conglomerates. It's these really large, gigantic companies who know we need to sell off $200 million. worth of Bitcoin, and they do it over the course of a 3-week period. It causes prices to drop. We get news that despite the falling prices, whales are buying up gargantuan amounts of Bitcoin off of crypto exchanges. Then we get the news that there's another capital inflow, and everyone's like, how the fudge did it happen? Because it keeps happening every 2 weeks. It says, and I quote, BlackRock captured the majority of capital entering the Bitcoin ETF market during this session, as 111 million US dollars flowed into Bitcoin, while total net ETF inflows for the day reached 170 million US dollars. They even have a little tiny chart here for the numbers as well. It says ETF inflows signal renewed institutional interest. It's difficult to be nice all the time. I don't understand who writes these articles, because once again, I scour the interwebs. I find like what's going on in the crypto space. I compile it together, and you and I go over it here. The amount of times that people write articles along the lines of like, yeah, money went back into, and so therefore it's renewed institutional. You think institutions just stop wanting to buy an asset? You think there's no method to their madness? Like imagine we here for 9 months. Institutions love Bitcoin. They're buying up tons of it. And then there's like Bitcoin outflows. You think that they were just like, oh, it's Wednesday. I don't like Wednesdays. Let's just sell all the crypto. Or do you think that as institutions who have $170 million, you know how coordinated that is? Have you ever tried to get you and your 7 of your friends to do something? You know how difficult it is? $170 million in a 24-hour period is coordinated. $220 million worth of outflows is coordinated. Doesn't it seem likely that the outflows are coordinated with the inflows, which are also coordinated to get people in and out of the market? You sell as a company because you want to make people think that something is wrong. It causes retail investors to flee their positions, causing crypto prices to go lower. These people, since around 2014, that's a real number, not a joking number, have purchased up any crypto that was sold during that time. They buy it up slowly over the course of multiple sessions as to not raise cryptocurrency prices. Then all of a sudden, the exact same money that left the ETF 8 days ago magically rolls on back in, the exact same number. Remember we had, there was someone, maybe March or April. I was so happy. I forgot who you are, but I was so happy you wrote this. Someone wrote an article and it was like, why is everyone so afraid of ETF outflows? You know why they wrote that article? Because whenever we hear about an outflow, it's like $28 million, $66 million from the ETF. It usually constitutes less than 1% of all the money in that fund. Imagine you had $1 million in your bank account. You have a nice solid $1 million. You bought a bunch of stuff. You check your bank account, and it says 999,000. You spent 1,000. Would you panic? Would you be mortified that you had spent $1,000? Or would you look and go, and I say it nicely, I still have $999,000. My investments are going to make enough that I will become a millionaire again just in this bank account. There's such a weird level of fear around the ETFs, and I don't know why. I think it's just very coordinated fear mongering by a number of very special people within the cryptocurrency market. I'm not gonna even name their names. There was someone recently. They're on the television. They announced something negative about Bitcoin, and I was like, "You're a monster, dude! You're literally you're making sure that you terrify people." that you try and get them to think that there's something wrong with Bitcoin. Because this is also a person who over the last few years has adamantly been a Bitcoiner. I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's amazing. They go on TV and they say it's television, not YouTube. They go on TV and they say this all the time. And then recently, they announced something about Bitcoin. It is nothing to even worry about. It literally is nothing. And they were like, yeah, I think I'm going to sell all my Bitcoin. And I was like, why would you go on TV and say that? Like, you're trying to make sure that you manipulate the price so that things go down so that you can buy more. So that when prices do go back up, you can pretend that you never said that thing before. I didn't lie to all of you. I was saying I would have sold if that thing happened. It's always the same. There's always some kind of a push to make sure that you're scared, to make sure that you shouldn't do something. That's why I always tell, like, if you have something you want to do, you want to accomplish, you want to create, do it. The worst that can happen is that you fail. Don't be afraid of doing things. You have to do something. You're alive. Try and get your goals together. I know it's a lot of times, even if you think from a perspective of trying to get $1 million in your bank account, it can be daunting, but you have to move forward. You have to accumulate money. You have to accumulate assets. It might take you 5 years. It might take you 10 years. It might take you 20 years. But then you're going to look down and you'll say, I have the money that I always wanted. Imagine if you had frozen solid and didn't do anything. It just kind of sat there. You wouldn't have progressed. Like, how much money have a lot of you made from investing over the years? Look how much money you have now. Imagine if you didn't move forward. It's always something. People are always trying to get us to be afraid of the cryptocurrency market. There's always something to recoil from, or it's quite frustrating. Anyway, very big thank you to Finley Bass. A very big thank you to Gilboa Snake. Very big thank you to Trent Jackson. Very big thank you to Gypsy Queen. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you to everyone who has left a like on the video. It helps out the channel a lot. Very big thank you to everyone who leaves a comment. I can't answer all the comments every day, but I do see you all helping out the algorithm, and I appreciate it more than you could possibly begin to imagine. I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do sincerely hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.